Hey friends, welcome into the Leadership Sandbox. I am really excited for part 4 of our Speaking Up series today. Our series title has been Dear HR, I'm not whining, I'm warning you. And today I'm really calling up and calling out HR with the courage to escalate when HR needs to call out leadership. Because we've all been there, right? There comes that point in that time, that moment when the real problem in the room is actually the corner office, the office upstairs on the top floor. It's the person with their name on the building or their name on the company, and HR knows it. But saying it out loud can feel risky. It's this episode that I've been waiting to get to in this 4-part series because we're talking about the courage to escalate when protecting culture means challenging power structures, challenging the person in the power seat. Listen, the fear of speaking upward is a real thing. And HR's loyalty dilemma, culture versus leadership, is also a real thing. There's the risk of speaking up. There's the risk of retaliation. It's isolation. It's job security. But silence can feel like the safer choice. And when we do that, we got to recognize that it also erodes trust internally. And it erodes that trust where they don't even want to come to your office, right? They don't want to come and talk to you. 67% of HR professionals say that they've witnessed executive behavior they didn't feel safe to report. That's kind of a frightening statistic that Sherm shared with us in 2023. And that only 28% of employees say they believe HR works in their best interest. Ouch. Hello. I know a lot of folks in HR. I challenge a lot of structures of HR. And I get to do that when I come in as a consultant. And it's interesting that I will have a greater trust bond with people as an outsider. That shouldn't be surprising, but I'll have a greater trust bond than HR does because I actually get into action quickly and I help people solve problems that HR cannot or will not actually help them solve because they're in that coveted seat of they got to stay neutral. HR, I know you want to stay neutral, but there are times where you do actually need to pick a side, the side for the health and the safety of your employees and the team that's doing the work, right? HR can't build trust from the bottom up if they're silent at the top. Think about that for a minute. For you in HR, for you on the team, you got to know trust can't be built bottom up if you as HR are silent at the top, especially when you see problems. So let's start to challenge some of the behaviors and let's teach you how when executive behavior damages culture, because that can be a real issue for you. And how do you navigate that? The fallout of unchallenged power, right? There's the fear of there's attrition, there's silent resistance, there's toxic behaviors at the top that create a ripple effect from the front line. And when the front line has to survive, HR's role is not to cover it up. It's to confront it with strategy. So here's my principle. You get Tammy's principle. Leadership silence protects reputation. HR courage protects culture. And I want to spend some time there for a minute because we all talk a lot about culture and we all in this industry of consulting and coaching and getting out and working in organizations and training up your people, we're talking about culture a lot. Culture is built whether by design or by default. And we know that. You've heard me talk about that in the sandbox before. Your culture will be built either by design or by default. What do I mean by that? Intentionality about the kind of culture. What do we want to be known, seen, and celebrated for? What do we want to be known, seen, and acknowledged for in the workplace, in this organization, to the community? That's an important ground level setting conversation to have with your team because that's where we then attach behaviors to that for the culture that we're wanting to have. If we say that we have a culture where we show respect and we have a culture that where we have an open door policy, which, I'm not a fan of that policy because I actually think it's flawed. But we say that, but then we don't model it or we don't explain what behaviors are we want so that we're modeling the culture we say that we want. Where we get into trouble with that is when we're protecting the people, right, over protecting the culture. And what I want to challenge you, if you're in the role of HR, is yes, you want to understand clearly what the culture is we want, what the behaviors are that we want, and who are the people that model it well, and celebrate that and acknowledge that and bring that to the table. Because when it's time to challenge the behavior at the top that's not modeling the culture that we say as an organization we want, it's going to be really important for you as HR, whoever, your role, to go in and challenge the person of authority that they're not modeling the culture that we say that we want. And you got to have the behaviors clearly aligned and outlined and defined so that you can go into that challenging role. So I'm going to say this again. Leadership silence protects reputation, your reputation, the reputation of the leader. But HR courage protects culture. So when you stand up for culture and you stand up for healthy behaviors as HR and be willing to have that conversation with the person at the top, I'm telling you, friend, it's going to be a game changer for the entire organization. And all of a sudden, people are more willing to come in and have a conversation with HR because they see that you're championing the people at every level with the behaviors that we say we want repeated to develop the culture that we want. So how do you escalate with impact? That's something that I talk with people a lot about. Escalate means evidence, right? You got to have the evidence. Document the behavior, fact versus emotion. And then you want to create, I guess, a safety net. And what I mean by that is I want you to find allies or people that are channels of influence for you that have seen these behaviors. And you want to tie the behavior, to the business impact. You want to tie the behavior that's not working for the culture that we want, even at the top. You want to tie it to the business impact, the business outcomes, not just emotion. It's not about that people don't like them, or it's not about the people are scared or people are uncomfortable. It's about what's the impact to the business. There is a direct ROI, right? There is a direct ROI on the investment of bad behavior that negatively impacts your organization. Get that documentation lined out, create the full picture so that it's not about the emotion, it's about the business impact. And then you want to offer alternatives, right? Offer solutions, not just problems. Come in with the solutions, come in with the opportunities that we're looking at when we change these behaviors, because we've tied it to a business impact. And you want to use your clear and neutral language, which is HR. You're super good at that. You know how to use clear and neutral language. Where you might want to work on is, how do we be assertive with our wording when we're presenting the business case of the culture change or the behavior change that we're wanting to see, right? We want to ask questions, right? And we want to be clear about what we want and need to see happen. And you can do that with the person whose name is on the building. You, as the HR leader, are the one that everyone is looking to champion for that. Now, you might need to go in and get some other of the, the CEOs, number 2 and number 3. I've said this a lot. I can go in and meet with the CEO, but if I don't have the ear of the person on their left and on their right, it won't matter what culture change, what behavior change I'm wanting to bring to the CEO. And the reason for that is the people that CEO is listening to sits to the left and sits to the right. And I've seen many organizations, I've seen many CEOs actually have epic failures, fail points, because they are listening more to the person on the left and the right that are not bought in to the same culture that the CEO says that they want to build. And it tears them down and it causes huge impact. So I know as a consultant, so I'm offering to you as an HR, make sure you also have the buy-in on the person that sits to the left and to the right of the CEO. And if that's the behaviors you want to go in and address first and get that buy-in first before you talk to the person at the top that's causing the conflict and problems and challenge with the culture, get the person on the left and the right You want to be clear about what needs to happen and build a timeline. Set the expectation for follow-up as well when you go into these conversations. It's just like you have the basic conversation of behavior change with people that are in your organization or coming into your office, and you've got a manager that brings in one of their frontline team members, and because they're not performing correctly, and you're doing a performance improvement plan. Okay, that's fine. Do your performance improvement plan. However, you always want to have your expectations and your follow-up and the cadence of what that looks like and by when. All of that this is the same thing. It's the same process. You're just addressing the different office. Instead of it being a boots on the ground or a middle manager, or someone at whatever level of the organization, you're going to the tippy top to actually get a change. You want the same process, right? And then you want to follow up and escalate again if needed. If there's no movement, take it back up. Be willing to escalate with more of a backup plan, with more people, with more business indicators that show how this behavior isn't working. And let me give you a real true story of mine. I was working within a company that really had a toxic leader at the top, and their behavior, depending on what mood, he very toxic in his delivery style. And no one wanted to confront it, or when they tried, they brought so much emotion that he didn't actually believe what they were saying. So when I came into the conversation and I took emotion out of it and broke it down to A, B, C, here's what's working, here's what's not, right? It's the start, stop, and continue model. But I actually went into, I don't want you to start anything yet. I'm just going to talk about the stops. Normally, I'm going to talk about starts first, but with this situation, I had to go, right, these are the behaviors. This is the impact on the business. Here's what needs to change, and we need to stop it now. And then we'll co-create together, because sometimes with people like that are really aggressive in the workplace, when you get to the stop, you want to co-create with them what the start doing looks like. And you actually have the power and authority to do that, but you got to build the business case. And when I built the business case with this CEO, and I showed him what his impact was having to the very people that he was trying to motivate in a very improper way, it was a game changer. It changed it for him because he could see the view from a different perspective. But I had to get that blunt, that direct, and say, stop it. We're better than that. That's not the culture that we want. Here's what I hear that your people say and what you say that you want. This is what your mission statement, your value says. This is not what we're modeling. And here's the business case for it. It was a wake-up call. It was hard. HR has struggled to do it. They brought me in. I was able to do it. But HR then learned my tools and techniques of how I inserted myself into the middle of that. And thankfully, the CEO was willing. And sometimes they're not. And then it's an opportunity for them to step off, or it's an opportunity for the team to step off, which has happened as well. That can be it. But you want to continue to escalate with a backup plan and bring somebody else in. Escalation isn't about drama. It's about design how you're going to do it. It's how culture course corrects itself, right? You can course correct a culture, but the way that you do that is by design. So here is your 4-step action plan for you when HR needs to address leaders. Identify power protected behavior. Where is feedback being shut down or dismissed? You want to identify it, and you want to understand where feedback might be being shut down or dismissed. Step 2, you want to use the Escalate framework. Prepare your message strategically and in writing, right? You're going to have a business case with it. You're going to have a cost of it, right? What's that ROI on the very things, the bad behaviors, the inappropriate, the whatever that behavior is that we want to see changed. Your step 2 is to create that within your framework and prepare your message strategically and in writing. Get comfortable with it. Visualize yourself giving this delivery to the leader. Visualize yourself preparing and how you're going to say it, how your body language is going to be, so that you physically are prepared to actually deliver it. And then you need to build your leadership ally, right? Who's the allyship, if you will, in your organization? Who do you bring around you? Don't go it alone. Loop in other credible voices. Remember, the person to the left or the right, they might be credible voices, and or the people that's impacted the most, that find out who your CEO or your leader respects in the organization and get them on your allyship. Loop them in. as a credible voice. And then step 4 is that you normalize upward feedback by incorporating more than just 360-degree feedback at all levels, but sharing the value of why we do that, why we want to look at the view from all angles of the problem. Because, I love this when I tell you, we'll put a cup in the middle of the table and I will ask the people around the table to tell me what the view from their chair is of that item, that cup. And I literally put a cup in the middle of the table. And I go in usually with my cup because my cup has stickers on it. And so you can see different stickers on my cup. And they're like, oh, that's the don't should all over yourself. Oh, I like that. Oh, choose to get to want to. I see that. Actually, I don't see a sticker, or I see the Yeti symbol or whatever it is, but people are talking because they're seeing it around the cup at different angles. Why is that important? Because when we start to talk about the problem, we now have an analogy to tie it back to. We have an activity to tie back to go, remember the cup? We all saw it a little bit different. That's how we literally incorporate that 360 feedback, that we're talking about the full picture and why that's important. Because if no one can tell the truth to power, and I want you to hear this really, this is so important. After you complete this step, the 4-step process, and you're modeling this and you're getting in there, I want you to think about this as you're preparing for it. Maybe that you have a leader that, again, names on the building or names on the company, and it's the emperor has no clothes scenario. No one wants to tell the emperor they have no clothes on. They just sort of pretend around him, which is so destructive to the culture in your organization, to health in your organization, in your team. But if no one can tell the truth to power, then the culture has already collapsed. The culture you say you want is already broken. Escalation is not betrayal, friends. It's leadership. And HR, it starts with you, because that's who people are going to come to. And if you're not willing to be in that role where you can confront, and you're overprotecting the boss, you're overprotecting the guy or the gal at the top, then you are creating a culture where people do sound like they're whining because they're complaining to you, and what they're giving you are warning signs of the future to come. If that's not something you can stomach and handle, then my invitation is to look at the role that you're in and the seat that you hold. Because maybe if you are HR and you're not able to go in and confront, then you are the problem. And people are coming to you to say, hey, I'm raising my hand. I'm waving the flag. Help. They want you to be a helper, a helpmate in that situation. If this is something that you struggle with, it's okay. Then it's time for you to get yourself someone to coach you through the process of how you step into your personal power and your role, and you champion the culture that the organization says that they want. And it starts with championing it through the process of confronting or escalating issues to the top, even when it's uncomfortable. You can do it. You've got this. I believe that you're whole, capable, creative, and resourceful to get, achieve, attain everything that you need, HR, and that you need as an individual. And maybe you don't have an HR person. Maybe it's you, but maybe you don't have an HR person that you can actually escalate this to. This process works, friends. It works. The escalation process works when you got to talk to the person and you got to tell the emperor you have no clothes. I've had to do that. I've gotten to do that more times than I can count. And it takes process, and it takes getting confident in who I know I am, what I know I'm designed to be here for, to do, to help, to shift perspectives, show the view from multiple chairs, right? Use the cup, put it in the table, and ask everybody to talk about it, because you can always refer back to, and I do this. Remember when we went back to the cup and we talked about the view? It works, friend. HR, it starts with you. Yes. And you've got resources. Use them. I am so excited, guys, that we just completed our 4-part series in Dear HR. I'm not whining, I'm warning you. And this escalation process is key and important. And I've got tools on the website. So head on over to bondgroupenterprises.com, and we've got tools there for you to get on exactly how to have bold conversations that show respect and get results, even to the C-suite, even if his name or her name is on the building or the business. there's a way to tackle it. Thanks for joining me for this series. I hope you found it to be helpful. And I would love some more feedback. Don't forget to share it. Don't forget, third-party affirmations go so far. Definitely subscribe so that you get our weekly updated information, the great tools that we offer here. Download, share them with a friend, like, comment, hit me up in DMs on either Instagram, the Tammy Bond, or at Tammy J Bond on LinkedIn. Find me, message me, go to the website, hit me up with your questions. I want to hear what you took away from this episode, but also from this series. Dear HR, I'm not whining, I'm warning you. Until next time, friends, I'll see you next week in the sandbox. Make it a great day. God bless.